YSL with the game. For my jeans, I just spent the whole thing.
Alright, so today I'm gonna be teaching you guys how to do a basic Jugg edit. This is mainly for like beginners who want to get into After Effects, or maybe some advanced editors that you probably already know what you're doing, but you know, you can still take a couple pointers and a couple other things when it comes to scaling and stuff like that, if you want to also just stick around and watch. For this tutorial, and in particularly this type of style, you're gonna need a couple things. I recommend downloading Twixter Pro, that's what it's called, Sapphire, and RSMB. You don't really necessarily need like crazy effects or anything like that, and I'll be getting into why you don't need to do all those crazy effects. Me personally, I don't do it. I'm just a basic scaler. I don't do any like crazy effects on my edits, but I know that there's a bunch of other creative editors out there that have better Jugg styles than me. Now, I'm not the best editor, but I'm like, you know, decent enough to the point where I can easily explain in a video how to make a Jugg edit. And also, if you're new to AE, this is a good video to get started. So let's say you open up After Effects. By the way, I use Adobe After Effects 2020. A bunch of people use Adobe After Effects 2020. You can use 2021, 2022 maybe, but you will get different results every single time. So let's say you're right here in this screen and you're like, oh shit, I don't know what to do. That's fine. What you're gonna do is you're gonna make a new composition. So as you can see, the composition settings pop up when you click new composition, and usually I edit in 1920 by 1080. That's the width and the height. 23.976. You want to set the duration to 1 minute. That's how long that's how long the workspace is gonna be, right? But I'm gonna show you how to cut it down, so like when you go to render your edit, it doesn't just render out like everything you have left, you know. Once you hit OK and you make a composition, right, you're gonna find an audio. The way you find an audio is quite simple. It's not that hard. All you do is go to SoundCloud or, you know, YouTube or wherever you want, and there are many websites out there that are available to download audios. You can either download an audio off of a SoundCloud downloader website, a YouTube downloader website, or you can have an extension on your Chrome or whichever browser you use, and it can download a file, an MP3 file for you. It has to be an MP3. It can't just be like an MP4. Well, it can be an MP4, and you can just turn off the video, and it will only have the sound playing, because I've done that before. Alright, so now that you have your MP3, my MP3 file is right here. You just go to your files and drag it and drop it in here. You know what I'm saying? And it will easily just be right there. And yeah, that's basically the MP3 file. So this is the beat that I chose. You can do the same beat, you can copy the same edit if you want to remake it along with me, but just know that we might have different results. So
I'm in YSL with the game. For my jeans, I just spent the whole thing.
this is a collab part, you know what I'm saying? So I'm not really gonna like use the entire audio because there's gonna be a second part. Regardless, this is the audio I chose. This is the audio that I'm labbing with somebody with, but it's only 6 seconds long, and it shouldn't take me more than like 30 minutes. So now once you find an audio, you need clips, and the way to do that is I will leave a link in the description to a Discord server called Anime Raw. So when you have your clips from Anime Raws, basically what you do is when you join the server, there's gonna be a chat called Master List, and you're gonna click on the link, and it's gonna take you to a website filled with a list of animes. You're gonna choose an anime, whichever you want, I already have clips, but this is optional. You're gonna choose an anime, whichever you want, and you're gonna go to decryption list. When you go to decryption, it's called like decryption list or decryption keys, I don't remember. When you go to that chat, it's gonna have a bunch of codes, and next to it, it's gonna highlight which anime it is. You're gonna copy the code and you're gonna paste the code into the password, right? And it's gonna decrypt all the files, and you're gonna find which episode you want. It can be any anime, recent or old, it doesn't matter, and you're gonna download them. And when you download them, you put them in After Effects. All right, so these are the clips that I'm gonna be using. I'm gonna be using a JJK episode that recently came out. And usually what I start doing is I start marking my beats first before anything. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna press L twice on my keyboard. So as you can see, when you open up the waveform, you can kind of tell where the beats are at. Now the waveform isn't completely perfect. Sometimes you do have to use your ear, but I'm just gonna mark my beats right now. And also, to mark your beats, it's this little button right here where my mouse is hovering over. So we're just gonna go ahead, mark the beats, and try to get them right. Alright, so now that you have your beat markers, right, they should be a bit accurate, and I kind of went by ear, so it's kind of accurate to the waveform. It doesn't have to be too accurate, it doesn't really matter, but like you see, there's a big there's a beat right here, but I put the marker back here, so it's kind of accurate. So now that you have your beat markers, right, you're gonna find a scene. The good thing about Jugg edits is having good scenes, and if you have terrible scenes, it's not gonna look great. It's just gonna look bad, and you know, people are probably gonna clown you for it. So make sure to always like have a good scene. Alright, so this is the first scene that I'm using. It's kind of like a, you know, kind of like a build-up scene where Toji is kind of like standing and getting ready to like leap forward, kind of. And we're gonna Twix it because it's like easy to Twix. So basically, where you're gonna cut the clip, right? Alright, so basically, we're gonna cut the clip to where we want it to stop. So right about here, where Toji is like launching, this scene right here, this specific frame is like not Twixable and shouldn't be Twixed. So we're gonna cut that. And what I mean by that is you're gonna see in a second. Alright, so now that we have the scene and we cut it, by the way, the command to cut a clip for Windows is Shift Control D. You're gonna need to know this because if you want to learn how to Jugg edit, you need to at least learn how to cut your clips. Alright, so now that you cut your clip and you have your clip, alright, we're gonna Twixer. My Twix method is quite easy. It's not anything crazy. It's very easy. All you're gonna need is faster time remap by Paynut's test. You can find this. You can easily find this on YouTube anywhere, and you can download it. And what I do is I check off this. I keep this box off, and I hit the little check mark on remove last, and I'm gonna tell you why. Right. Also, I use a Twix script that automatically puts in my settings for Twixer. So it makes my whole life easier. It makes editing way faster. I'm going to leave a link in the description of a file where you can download both of the Twix script method. You're going to need them, and I'm going to put a picture of the file directory so you know where to put your scripts, your Twix scripts. You're gonna need them, and I'm gonna explain why. So you're gonna pre-compose the cut clip that you first cut, right? And the way you do that is Control Shift C. Or what you can do is you can right click on the clip and pre-compose. Right? It's gonna open this little prompt. It's gonna say leave all attributes or whatever. You're not gonna click this box, you can click the second box. Move all attributes into the new composition. Then hit OK. And what pre-composing does, it allows the original clip that's not been altered to be inside of the pre-compose. So what I'm doing is I'm double clicking the little bar that just popped up. It just went from blue to brown with these like hard edges on the side. I'm double clicking to go inside the pre-compose, and this is the original clip. Right? Pretty simple, right? But it's gonna allow you to alter the pre-compose, and I'm gonna show you what I mean. So we're gonna open up the time remap by hitting Control Alt and T, and we're just gonna move frame by frame. You could either use the arrow key, actually you can't use that. You can use Control and the arrow keys to move frame by frame, or you can use page up or page down. Page up to go left and page down to go right. So what I like to do is I like to have my hand on the page down, and I like to mark the keyframe of every movement that Toji makes of the character, basically. So let's say he doesn't move here, but he moves here, so we're gonna mark the keyframe. Alright. He doesn't move on the next frame, he moves on this frame. Alright, we're gonna mark it. Now you see I have 1, 2, 3 markers, right? We're gonna keep going until we get to the end of the clip. Mark the keyframe. He moves right there, mark the keyframe. Alright, now once he doesn't move anymore, you're gonna get rid of the last frame. I'm gonna show you how to do that. You don't want to get rid of it now. You want to get rid of it when all the keyframes are all together. So basically, what you want to do is you want to highlight all these keyframes, and you just want to click this little button right here. That's the stretch properties. It's gonna remove the last keyframe and keep the first keyframe. Boom. Now all my keyframes are compiled into one. Now it's a one constant motion. See that? So now we're gonna Twix it. We're gonna go to Windows, right? Twix it with RSMB. I use RSMB. You don't have to use RSMB. I just think it looks nicer. It does use up more of your RAM, but it does look a bit nicer with CC and everything on it. So we're gonna hit Twix it with RSMB. It's gonna pop this little tab open. Don't worry about it, just exit it. And my clip has been twixed, right? That's what it looks like right now. We're gonna stretch it out to the first keyframe. We're gonna bring the keyframe, the last keyframe, the second keyframe actually, not to the end of this clip, but one frame back, because this is the end of the clip. It's not showing anything. But this is the last frame of this clip. It's hard to explain, but basically, if you go one frame, it's the next clip. But if you go on the last frame, and you go back one frame, it's this clip still. Like, it's still like this clip. It's hard to explain, but when you're doing it with me, like, you'll understand. So, I have a flowchart. It's best if you get a flowchart. There is a YouTube tutorials and other videos that cover how to acquire the flowchart, how to install Sapphire, how to install Twixtor Pro, how to install RSMB. Once you get those down, it's easy as hell to make a Jugg edit. It's not hard. It's pretty simple. I'm gonna use this graph. You can copy the numbers and paste them into this little value thing, and you'll get this graph right here. This is like a slow graph, so it kind of like starts off kind of fast and it slows down and then fast again. So this is what my Twixtor is gonna end up looking like. It's not the best first scene, but like I said, the best thing about making a Jugg edit is having good scene selections. That's what's gonna make the edit look the best. Now we're gonna do the same thing and repeat it until we have no more clips. Another thing, if you guys have a problem where, let's say, you have the second clip and it goes to the next clip, and the first frame of the next clip has a dead frame or a black frame, you just move the first keyframe back one, and it'll show the next clip. Alright, so now that you finish your Twixter, you know, it should look a little something like this.
I'm in YSL with the game. For my jeans, I just spent the whole thing. I'm in YSL with the game.
So now that you finished Twixing, it is time for you to add motion tiles, and yeah. Also, opacity is not hard at all. If you want to learn how to opacity, just grab a second clip, right? And you just want to press T, and you want to add one keyframe starting from 0, and then go all the way to the end, or you can press O, the letter O on your keyboard to go to the end, and just change the opacity to 100. So it adds one keyframe here and then another keyframe here, and it does it in opacity. You don't have to change anything. It's just a cool little like opacity, and it does that. Once you've done Twixing, now you can get into your scales, and you can get into shakes and stuff like that. And I'm gonna teach you how to do both. Alright, so getting into scaling. First things first, you want to type in motion tile. Right, it's gonna be this right here. I already have a preset for it, but you're gonna slap this on every single clip. But first things first, the easiest thing you can do is just slap on motion tile. These are the settings. These are the settings for motion tiles: 960 by 540, tile width 100, tile height 100, output width 300, and output height 300 with mirror edges. This can be 200 or 250, it doesn't matter, but it basically gives it motion tiles. So as you can see, now I have motion tiles. So once you have these settings adjusted to motion tile, you're going to Control C, highlight the rest of the clips that don't have motion tile, and just slap the motion tile. You want to make sure that you go by every single clip, but sometimes the motion tiles does mess up on the opacities, and the opacities are not centered right, but everything seems to be fine. So now that you have motion tiles, it's still gonna look the same. Nothing has changed. That's just a pre-render.
I'm in YSL with the game. For my jeans, I just spent the whole thing.
So now that you have your motion tiles, we can start scaling and adding shakes. I like doing my scales and my shakes at the same time, because then I can see how the shake looks like on the scale. You want to press S on your keyboard to open up the scale, and basically you're going to type in 250. It's going to start from in, and then it's going to come out, right? So I'm going to press O to go to the last part of my clip, and I'm going to type in 100. Now it looks like this. See, it's not quick, it's not fast at all, it's just a scale. So this is where the graph editor, this little thing right here, comes into play. You want to highlight both of your keyframes and press F9 on your keyboard, or if you don't have F9, you go to Keyframe Assistant, Easy Ease. So now that you've done that, you want to open up the graph editor, and you see right here, there's going to be a graph, right? Don't be intimidated by this at all. I'm going to show you how to graph your scales, generally what you want to look for, and etc. So what I do is I click this little button to zoom the graph in, fit all graph to view. But the thing is, this isn't a accurate representation of what the graph is gonna look like, I kind of have my graphs kind of look like this, a little bit smaller. So what I do is I click the zoom out button, this little mountain right here that's smaller than the bigger one, twice, and now it's a bit smaller and it's a bit more accurate, and you can kind of adjust it a little bit better. So if it's going in, right, and it's coming out, the way you would want to graph is you want to grab the top anchor, drag it down and to the left as much as you can, like make it hug the wall. Then you want to grab the bottom anchor and kind of put it parallel to the left anchor, kind of like this almost. So if I take the two keyframes and I apply it to my flowchart, it kind of looks something like this, you know. This is what it looks like on the flowchart, but this is what it looks like on the graph editor. It's two different things. So it kind of looks something like this. See? Just a nice clean graph. Not stiff at all, you know what I'm saying? It's very smooth. And that's your first graph, you know what I'm saying? It's not hard, it's easy as hell. Especially when you practice, it gets easier and easier, and the time it takes you to make your edit is reduced, basically. I'm gonna teach you guys how to make a shake as well. One shake that I'm going to teach you guys how to make. Obviously, the best thing you can do is learn from this shake and make your own shakes, but the way you want to make your shakes is by using Sapphire or S underscore. So what you want to do is effects and presets. You want to type S underscore shake. Oh shit. S underscore shake. Want to apply it. Okay, and I'm gonna teach you guys how I make my shakes. Alright, so first things first, the amplitude is at 1, right? But that's too low for me. So what I do is I usually go to 1.5 for the amplitude. And that's the amplitude, and we're gonna graph it, but we're not gonna change it right now. I mean, we're gonna keyframe it, but we're not gonna change it right now. The frequency, I like to match it with the amplitude, but I don't add any decimals to it, so it's just 15. I do have motion blur on my shakes, but the motion blur, I turn it up to 2.5. I know that may seem like a lot, but it's really not. For my X shake, I usually have the rand. I'm gonna lower it to like 105. So the amp is actually like how strong of the impact it's gonna be, and then the frequency is I usually do like 7. Sometimes I go 8, or sometimes I do 9, but I'm gonna do 7 because we don't want like something crazy. And then the rest I leave by itself. The white shake, same thing goes for the white shake. The rand amp is how much impact it's gonna have up and down. Impact meaning like the first couple of frames of the clip, like the impact. We're gonna go 125 for the Y rand amp, and then for the frequency amp, we're gonna match it to the previous the previous frequency for the X, and we're just gonna do 7. Also, the tilt, you want to make it 5. That's the last thing that I do. Now, when we keyframe this, we're gonna go to the end of the clip, and we're gonna do 0.6. It kind of gives it like an ending, like impact shake to it, so it keeps constantly shaking. And we're gonna use the flowchart, and we're just gonna make a super tight graph up and to the left corner, so it's really fast and unnoticeable. So now it looks like this. You know, you feel me? It's not a bad shake. The only thing that's wrong with the shake, it's not seated properly. And what I mean is, what you can do is you can seed a shake properly with the seed little option here, and what it does is it changes the first frame of the shake, so you can choose a position of where you want it to shake. So let's say if I wanted to choose that position, it, you know, that looks a lot cleaner. In my opinion, it just looks a lot nicer. And you know what I'm saying? So now that you made your shake and you made your first scale, you want to transition into the next clip. And the way you do that is, some people use the scale keyframes. They just move this keyframe back twice and then just use the last keyframe. But I like it to my Jugg edits to be a bit more smoother. So what I do is I use an adjustment layer. And I usually go 3 frames back. So if we're right here at the end of this clip, I count from here, and I'll do 1, 2, 3, right there, and I'll cut the adjustment layer. The command to add an adjustment layer over your clip is Control-Alt-Y, by the way. And so what I do is I type in transform, apply it to the adjustment layer, scale. Right here, there's a scale clock right here that you're gonna click on. You're gonna press O to go to the end of the clip, and you're gonna do 250. It's gonna go in. Usually the graph that I use is always the same for the transition scale, because it doesn't really matter. So I usually use something like this, or to make it a bit more smoother, something like this. Where this is what we're gonna use and see and test it out. So as you can see, it goes in, and it's pretty smooth. You know, it's not stiff at all. It's the scale that I put lasts the whole scene, and after it scales in all the way out, it goes in immediately. Pretty easy, pretty simple, pretty smooth. You know, nothing is stiff so far. And that's also what you need to check for, is if the scale is too stiff, you know, maybe you need to loosen up the graph. Maybe you need to spread the anchor points a little bit away from each other, so it's a bit more just. Alright, now to scale in, we're gonna open up the scale menu again, and we're gonna keyframe the first frame of the clip, and we're gonna type in 80, press O on our keyboard, and type in either 125 or 130 is the most that I do. I do usually, sometimes depending on how the clip is and how it looks, I usually go as far as 140 or 150, but in this case scenario, I'm only doing 125. We're gonna do the same thing, but we're gonna do it the opposite way, because now we're going out from out to in. So now the graph is gonna be reversed. So we're gonna bring the left anchor just a bit up like that, and then we're gonna bring the top anchor, and we're just gonna bring it like right here. See how this looks. So it's a little stiff. We're gonna bring the anchors off a little bit. Yeah, that's better. Yep, you see? It kind of looks like the same graph we had on this one, just on this one. The reason why I do my graphs by hand is because it's a bit better to do them by hand than using presets. Because if you use presets all day long, all your edits are gonna look the same and boring, and no one's gonna like them. We're gonna copy the same shake we made, and we're gonna apply it to this. We're just gonna do this. We're gonna adjust the keyframes to the clip right here. So the seating is actually not bad on this scene at all. Now the rule of editing or jugging is you want to do scale out, in, out, in, out, in. You know what I'm saying? Like you want to go out here, in here, and then out here. But my style, I don't do that. Sometimes I like to scale in twice. You know what I'm saying? And especially on opacity scenes where like his face is kind of like here and then it gets closer, I also scale in. And I'm gonna teach you guys how to do that as well. So we're just gonna do the same thing. Gonna add a transform, make it 3 frames. I mean, add an adjustment layer and make it 3 frames. And we're gonna do 250 for the scale. We're gonna try this real quick. That's too stiff. I don't like that. Alright, and right here we're gonna scale in again. So we're gonna go from 80 to 125. F9, go to the graph editor and graph it. That's fine. And then add the shake. See how quick that was? Like, it only took us not even like 2 seconds. It took us like a second. Alright, so now that you added your scales to the opacity, and it goes from in, you see, it kind of makes sense because it zooms in on its face. So now you want to add your transform, scale out. Usually I just do 80 when I scale out. Sometimes I do a warp eye, but we're not going to cover that today. So usually what I do is with my wave warp, so that it doesn't have any so you don't see the black background or whatever, and it covers the entire screen. I have my wave warp, and these are my settings: the wave height 19, wave width 1600, direction 235, wave speed at 0.8, and phase at 235, matching the direction. So what I do is I add this shake, and it kind of zooms in the shake a little bit because of the Z dist, right? It kind of zooms in the edit just a bit. The amplitude I have it at 0.9, no keyframes by the way. I have nothing keyframe. The amplitude I have it at 0.9, frequency at 1.40, Z dist at 0.9. This is what's gonna cover the entire screen. No motion blur, nothing needed. This is the X shake. I just leave it at 96. The Y shake 48. The Z shake, I don't do nothing with it. And then the tilt shake, you put it to 4. And that's it. That's all you're gonna need for a good wave warp. I'm in YSL with the game. For my jeans, I just spent the whole thing. So now for effects. For the effects, all you want to do, right, is you're gonna put an adjustment layer over the transform layer, or the layer with the transform effect on it. You're gonna put an adjustment layer, and you're gonna cut it the length of the clip, and you're gonna put it above the transform. Alright, I usually just do exposure, add exposure. We're gonna start from, we're gonna keyframe the first frame, we're gonna do 2, and then press O on our keyboard to go to the last frame of the clip, and we're just gonna press 0. Press U to open up the keyframes, highlight the keyframes, and this is usually the graph I use for exposure, if I could find it. It's right here. This is usually the graph I use for exposure, and you hit apply. Now you see it's gonna add exposure to it. It's gonna make it look nice. And you want to throw this everywhere. And that's it. You made your first Jugg edit. I'm going to leave a link down in the description with the free CC that you can put over this edit, but I'm gonna put my own CC on this edit. I'm not gonna give the CC out, the CC method or anything like that, because this isn't a CC tutorial. This is just a Jugg edit tutorial. But If you want a free CC, I'll have a link to a CC that would work with this scene. And it looks nice too.